And before we have David hop on with us today, first and foremost, David, thank you so much for being on with us today. But also just to kind of, clout on David quite a bit, his largest month was helping over 87 families on his own personal PIN. So that says a lot about, how much he cares about families and how hard David definitely works. So David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Coming in perfect.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure being able to be, with people that like you, that like-minded, that are out there killing it and building. So it's awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being on with us, David, today. I don't take it lightly at all. But with that being said, just to kind of open it up, I know I've had the chance to kind of get to know you a little bit through being in the same area geographically, which is great. But with that being said, a little bit about kind of like who you are, what you did before Family First Life, and kind of what got you into Family First Life.
All right. So basically, I got into Family First Life 2 years ago. It was April of 2020. And hang on a second. Let me just set that down. There we go. So what I was doing before was I had a business, still have it, but it was a currency trading business, both educational and I traded for myself, my own accounts. Was doing very well doing that, but it was one of those situations where I was in the home and surrounded by screens 24/7, and currency market is a 24/7 market. So I wasn't getting much sleep either. So, I was just looking to do something a little bit different, challenging. I had been in and out of the insurance industry probably for it's been 23 years now, because I first got licensed in 1998.
All right. So you were in, you were out, and you kind of are still operating different business while still being able to be in business here at FFL at a really high volume, which is really amazing, because I didn't know any of that. So that's awesome. Okay.
Thanks.
And I guess kind of what got you back into insurance, or what got you here at Family First Life, particularly at this time?
Well, when I renewed my license 2 years ago, I was looking at two companies, this company, another company that provided leads, and COVID had just hit, so the other company was running scared, and this company was out front looking to help people, and I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to get out there and help families. So that's when I just went ahead and made the commitment to Family First Life, and it's been great ever since. It's been awesome.
Awesome. I love that. And that says a lot about you. That David, you were like, I want to work with the company that's out there basically saying we still want to help families while we're going through a global pandemic. I don't want to hurt myself or anyone else out there, but people still need our help. And you were on board with that. So I love that. But kind of just to kind of jump right into things, go over a little bit, if you don't mind, David, your schedule, your leads, like what a regular dial day looks like for you, just kind of that basic, so to say.
So my schedule is, I just a typical FFL schedule. I've always been that way. Mondays and Thursdays are dial days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and every other Sunday for me. That's the commitment I've made. I'm out in the field running, and I am scheduling 8 to 10 appointments every single day. And I'm doing a mixture of both mortgage protection, final expense. I'm buying instant internet leads. I'm just mixing it up. I'm going outside the box, looking at some third-party vendors, places like Game Time and other places. Game Time happens to be one of my favorite third-party vendors, but there's lots out there. So the idea is really to mix it up for me, and that's what's been, helped me become successful and keep being in a position to, write a lot of business. So when mortgage protection slows down, the leads slow down, or the mailers slow down, you always have something in place, or you always have a plan to keep moving and keep going and helping more families. So my dial day is pretty simple. I'm on the phone at 7:30, and I don't stop until I'm done. It's as you're building, as I'm starting to build, it becomes a little bit more challenging because there's other things that you need to do during the day as well. But, those are things that you have to set into your schedule and plan to do. So this would be like a time right now where it fits perfectly with you guys in your meeting, because it's a time where I would be doing that kind of stuff. And then I get right back on the phone. It's 4:30 and I'm dialing till 9.
Absolutely. David, I love like just almost your attitude about this is like, dude, it ain't that deep. Like that's almost like your stance on,
Yeah.
you're like, it's like, this is what I do, just like everyone else. And, basically you're like, I work so I get results, right? Like you're like, I set 8 to 10 appointments. I run every other Sunday. I've made X commitments and I'm going to follow through on them.
Yeah.
And I love that attitude of basically like, it's really not that deep. You just have to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And then lead diversification, sometimes, and I'm sure you've heard it before too, it's like, oh, those are the good leads. Every lead is a good lead, right? So you just hit on that perfectly. You do mortgage, final expense, internet. You're outsourcing, so you're not discriminating.
That's right.
Love it. So real quick, David, what are some of your non-negotiables and how important is it for you to kind of hop on training calls as well, and do you take those as non-negotiables?
So big non-negotiable for me is just attitude and activity. I mean, it's that simple. I wake up every single morning, 4:30 in the morning, and the first thing I do is I meditate and I visualize my success that day. And I just, basically will it into place, so to speak. So keeping your mindset right. So as far as the training and things like that, I don't even know what the latest songs are. I mean, my daughters will tell me what the latest songs are when I'm spending time with them. But other than that, I don't know what's going on, because the only thing that's going on in my car is training. So I want to watch a podcast. I want to get better at mortgage protection. I'm watching 5 Ways to Sell Mortgage Protection, and I'm watching it over and over and over again until like I can literally regurgitate what they say. Same thing. I mean, you guys have an awesome leader here with Marissa, and then of course you have Paul McLean. He is one of my favorite trainers. I love to watch his videos and get on his podcast and listen. Just fill my mind with good, positive vibes, and that's what I do. So that's to me, that's non-negotiable. It's like, it's not even like I'm even wondering anymore what the latest song is, or I'm a country fan. I like country music, but I'm not even like who's the latest and greatest. Nothing. It's all right. What's new for training? What's Paul got going on? What's Sean Mike out there saying? What's Eric Schmidt? He's office next to mine. What's he putting out there that I can listen to and just absorb it. So that's for me, that's the biggest thing. Hopping on training calls is important. We have a big Northeast training call on Saturday mornings. That's non-negotiable. Before that, we have a manager call.
David, I think we lost you. Can you hear me? All right, let's give David just a second here. You might unfreeze. And just shoot him a message. All right, and really just to kind of piggyback off that until David hops back on here in just a second, I'm sure he will. It's ironic, right? Because the people who you see performing at a higher level are usually all saying the same things, right? They're saying they wake up early. Oh, okay, beautiful. David, you're back with us. Okay. Perfect. So you were talking about, you said basically the calls, you're getting on the calls, they're already kind of keyed into your schedule, they're already woven in there, if you will. So now it's to the point you don't really have to think about, if you're going to get in your car and listen to your favorite song. It's, I know I'm going to get in my car's a rolling university, and I'm going to be learning about what's most current with Family First Life, or I'm going to be getting on X call, right?
Yeah.
So love that. And attitude and activity, it's that simple. That's what David literally just said verbatim. And it really is that simple. You can control your attitude, you control your activity. You're going to be able to control your results if you can control those two things, right? And David, you have a family, so I always like to ask folks, because I can't relate to having children, being married, whatever that might look like. How important is it that your family understands the opportunity and kind of what your mission is here at Family First Life?
I mean, it's super important. You gotta, they gotta know what it's gonna take, where it's gonna go. Obviously, they're benefiting from the great results as far as things that they get to do, things that they're doing, and things like that. So monetarily, so to speak. But there's more to that for them. It's hey, how come dad's not home anymore? Or because I used to be home 24/7. I worked right out of my office. I had the space shuttle, so to speak, with all the screens and everything. So when they went to school, I was there. When they came home from school, I was there. So it was a huge adjustment, more for the kids than anything else. My wife, when I am home, sometimes my wife's like, "When did you go back out? I'll take care of this." So, but yeah, so, I mean, it's just one of those things that it's super important for them to be all on board. Now, the other side of that is I am very, another, we talked about non-negotiables. So non-negotiable for me is time that I set aside for the family, right? But say I plan ahead for that. Everything that I need to be at is in my schedule. I'm going to be there. My girls have a dance recital coming up next month. It's in my schedule. I'm going to be there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm not working on that day. That stays for them. The every other Sunday is I get every other Sunday. I'm working, and then every other Sunday I'm with one of my daughters. I have two daughters, 13 and 10. I'm with one of my daughters, and then the other one, I'm with the other one, and I have that one-on-one time. And then the other non-negotiable for me is on a Wednesday evening. I stop at 5 o'clock, and I'm with my family Wednesday evening. So we have our family time. So scheduling them in, making sure that they know they're a part of this process is extremely important. You can't do it without it. And then it's important to ask them, how they're doing, how they're feeling about everything. That's what I do with my girls. Just, I know they miss me. I know it's a struggle, it's a challenge, because dad's not home all the time anymore. But they understand, they see the results, and as long as they get to spend that time with me, they know that I love them and I care for them. So they're extremely supportive. And sometimes they're telling me, how many appointments you got? They're keeping me on my toes.
They're like, Dad, do you have enough appointments?
Right.
Awesome. So I think that that's huge. And I think that, David, when you make sacrifices in the essence of you're literally following this schedule, you're doing your job, getting it done, you're going home, you're following it to a T, you have the availability, if you will, to be able to say, I'm going to actually schedule these things out, and it's still going to make sense in a month from now, because your non-negotiables, they're not wavering, right?
That's right.
It's not like you're going to be
like, important too. It's important too that when you have those moments with them, with the family, it's important that you're present and in those moments. And that's what I try to do, so make sure that I'm present in those moments. I'm not distracted with everything else that's going on.
Absolutely. And that's huge, and I think that I can imagine it can be a big change, from dad being, working from home to dad's, in the field all the time, helping a lot of families. But the fact that your girls can see, hey, look, like basically dad plans these events with us, dad explains it to us, we're not confused. It keeps everything in the green, so to say. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. So, I know firsthand, David, because I call my leads and they're like, David was out here. And I'm like, oh, David's awesome, which I do tell them, by the way. However, I know that you help a lot of families, right? And with that being said, how do you set the stage going into an appointment, and why is it important to set the stage that way?
Okay, so when you say that, you mean setting the stage when we walk in, like we arrive at the home, or like on the phone?
Well, actually, more so like when you get there in the home, like what's going to happen
Okay.
that day?
Yeah, so when I get to the home, you know, I get out of the car and immediately wave at the house with a smile. And, you know, we go to the door, and whether I know they're looking at me or not, I just wave at it. At first, it felt a little silly to do that, but you'd be surprised how welcoming they are when you do that. They see you coming. They're watching out for you about 80 to 90% of the time. So, so as soon as they let me in the door, you know, I just proceed to the table. Shoes on or off? I don't ask that question. I take my shoes off. That's just the way I was raised. That's what I do. So I don't ask on or off. I just take them off, unless, you know, it's a nasty house. Then I'm keeping them on. But, you know, most of the time it's shoes off. And then we're going to the table. We're going straight to the table and sitting them down. I make sure that I place them where they're going to be sitting next to each other. And I'm not going to be doing this back and forth or anything like that. And I sit down so they can see them both and talk to them both. And they can't give their code messages to each other that they give. Once they do that, I don't take anything out. I leave my bag. Everything is in my bag. You know, some people take out the lead sheet. I don't. Everything's in my bag. So once we do that little, you know, 20-second, you know, warm up, so to speak, it's not really a warm up, but it's 20-second. This is what I'm here for. And then I just go into, tell me a little bit about what motivated you to fill this form out. Tell me what's motivating you to look into insurance today, and getting the why. And so once I have the why, and it's very solid, it's very strong. Again, lots of questions asking. I'm not taking generic questions. So if they say, oh, well, we just want to, you know, for mortgage protection, for example, well, I just want to make sure Mary doesn't have to, you know, worry about paying for the house. And that's what they say, right? That's always the first. But you have to dig deeper than that. So I'll say, John, tell me a little bit. I understand that most people feel the same way you do. And I know I wouldn't want my wife to have to pay for the house if something happened to me. But tell me a little bit more specifically what you mean by that. All right. So it gets to draw them out even more. And that's what you want to do. You want to, and everything they say in response to you, you're going to ask more questions and more questions until you've really got that strong why. It's like, you know, it's a no-brainer. You're not telling them they need it. They're basically, in essence, selling you on why they need the coverage, and they need to do something today. Once I do that, then I set the structure for how the rest of the appointment's going to go. John and Mary, let me tell you a little bit about what's going to happen here today. I understand. I'll repeat why all the whys that they gave me, and this is how it's going to look. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to spend about 5 to 8 minutes asking you some basic questions about your health and your finances. That's going to put me in a better position to make a right recommendation for you that not only I know you can qualify for, but something that you can afford as well. In order to do, and then once I understand what you can qualify for, we're going to go ahead and see what we can get you pre-qualified for. See what carriers are going to give you the best rates. In order to do that, I'm going to need your name, address, phone number, social security number, and email address. We're going to submit that to the carrier. You're going to sign on my screen, submit it to this carrier, and they're going to come back to me and they're going to let me know what you can qualify for. Once we know what you qualify for, I'm going to lay out the options for you. You're going to pick which one makes the best sense to you. We're going to find something in your budget, and then we're going to submit an application today. In order to submit the application today, what we're going to need to do is we're just going to have to answer the rest of the questions on the application, provide the payment information for how you're going to pay for it, and then we're going to submit it to the carrier. Do you have any questions on that process? No. Perfect. Should we proceed? Yes. Perfect. Now you've just overcome every objection. And when it comes to Social Security check, we're not doing numbers, we're not doing quotes, we're getting you approved. And then from there, I take out my financial inventory and we're going through the financial inventory.
I love that. And that's huge because you kind of hit on it almost from every different angle. There's really nothing at that point that they can tell you that you said, oh, I like the bank, the social security number. You lay everything right out after you have that why. And like you said, you're having them sell you essentially on why they need the protection and the coverage. Because like you mentioned in the beginning, Dave, why'd you fill the form out? They usually give you a very generic answer. Like you said, I just want to make sure my husband, my wife, my son, my kids covered, right? But you want to dig a little bit deeper than that. So I like how you essentially pull the why out, you're understanding where they're coming from, and you're like, okay, they definitely do need this insurance. So you're reiterating that why and then telling them the process. Like, hey, we're doing this today. And when you're doing the pre-qualification, you're doing that with America. Is that right? Depending on the
Correct.
appointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put it through America all the time first.
Love it.
You can adjust. You can adjust. They don't need to know that you're putting it through America. That's your pre-qualification. They're going to do a prescription history check. That's going to let you know if they're telling you everything that you need to know. And if they qualify for America, why not put it through America?
Absolutely. And you can always change the face amounts and then you have a good idea. So I love that. That's
Correct.
beautiful.
Price and face amounts is never discussed at that point. We haven't even discussed price and face amount up to there ever. I'll put it in whatever their mortgage is. I'll put it in 300,000. Let's see what they qualify for, because that number can always be changed, like you said.
Absolutely. Okay. I love that. That's beautiful. And then you just walk right through. And I assume that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, you know, most people, if not all people, pretty much follow through on that process when you're doing it that way.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just really the next step after, doing the financial inventory. That's just the next logical step. This is what we're going to do. And I've already laid it out for them. So if I'm going to get an objection at that point, it's not going to be at that point. It's going to be in the beginning when I went over how the structure of the appointment was going to go. This is how things are going to go. This is how we're going to do things. Right. And then at that point, when I say, shall we proceed? Well, we just wanted numbers, or, I'm not the price guy. I'm not here to give you quotes. I'm here to protect your family and make sure that Mary has enough money so that if something happens to you, she's going to be able to make decisions in her life that aren't going to have to mean financially. She's going to have to dig into her life savings. That makes sense to you? And then right back into this is the process. But when they say they just want numbers, and I say, I'm not the quote guy, I'm not here just to give you numbers, I'm here to protect your family, and this is why, and you repeat everything they told you, and if they're still like, I'm just want numbers, I'm sorry, then is there anything else I can do for you today? I'm not sitting with them. I'm not going to continue. I'm moving on to my next appointment. Now, the only way you have the posture to do that is if you have enough appointments in your schedule. So 8 to 10. If you have 8 to 10 appointments in your schedule, then you don't have to sit there wasting your time with somebody who just wants numbers, that they're not committed to protecting their family. And so I like to find that out in the front end before you even get to that process.
Absolutely. And that's huge. Yeah, it's a great way to open it up. You're going to avoid all objections, and you're going to make sure, again, anything you're getting it in the first 5 or 10 minutes that you're in the home. Right. And that's also a beautiful thing, to be able to walk out and leave. And I do want to kind of just piggyback off something you said there, because David, I know that there's been times that I've been in the field and I've had, 3 appointments that day, which definitely, by the way, don't recommend it. But then there's been days that I've been in the field and I have 12 appointments, and the stance you have is so much different, right? Like, if you have 3, you're like, I'm like begging you. I'm like, David, please bye, right? But like
and you're there for 3 hours.
Yep, and I'm telling you for 30, 35 extra minutes why you need the coverage, right? I'm right? Yeah. And versus you have the 12, and it's like, hey, if you're not serious about this, the next person probably is going to be, I'm already late, is what you're literally thinking, right? So like, let me, move on if this person isn't going to take it serious. And I think that the fact that we're able to identify that quickly is huge. So I love that. You had shared some stories through different events that we were both at together. And if you don't mind, what are some specific things that you hone in on, whether it's on the financial inventory, or it's, a question or a particular area, maybe where you bring up a story. Do you do that at all in home, David?
Oh yeah. I mean, I do. Oftentimes I start with, this is, let me tell you a little bit why I'm here, or I'll say, let me tell you a little bit about why I love what I do. That's kind of the warm up thing. And I'll just tell them, I sort of fell into this business, back in 1998, but it started in 1986. After coming home from a basketball game, my parents dropped us off. My brother and my parents went out for a night to celebrate. And that was the last time I saw my father. And it was, this was about 6 months after we bought a house. or I should say they bought a house. But I remember, and I'll just tell you the story so you guys can use the story. But I remember sitting in the back seat of my car, or my parents' car, and I remember my mom begging my dad to buy insurance, to get some insurance in case something happens. And he just said, "Don't worry, Bruni, I'll take care of it. Don't worry." He kind of just shrugged her off a little bit. And 6 months later, we didn't see him. He didn't wake up. He had a heart attack in his sleep. So no insurance. He was the breadwinner. My mom was a crossing guard. She was always part of the school, trying to do something just to kind of keep an eye on us. And there's no way on earth she could have afforded it. And she lost the house, and she didn't even get to keep the equity in the house. So talk about how, when we talk about equity protection, even if she would have had that, would have been something where she could have had enough money to pay the mortgage so that she would be able to keep at least the money that they put down on the house, the money that they put into it. Because in the beginning, that's all it is, right? Nobody owns the house when they buy the house. They own the equity that's in the house. That's what's theirs, what they put into it. But so if there would have been something in place, then that would have at least taken care of that. But my dad was 36 years old. I was 14. And, he was young enough where, simple, I think the house back then, if I remember correctly, was around $130,000, $140,000 house. And, at age 36, it's peanuts. You just have to not procrastinate and take care of it. So, I do share that story with my clients. It's pretty much the opening is the story. It's like what I did when I kind of told you guys that in Worcester. That's the first time I ever told that story to a big group like that. But I do talk to my clients about it. And, I'm a huge believer in telling stories. And so here's another story you can tell that could impact somebody in the home. And when I was in the business in 2005, I went on an appointment with somebody. I was doing Medicare, long-term care, and annuities. And I was visiting somebody. I did life insurance too. And we were putting a life insurance plan together for a family. They were older. The guy was 64 years old. He lived in Dalton. He worked for Crane Paper Company, which if you don't know who they are, they're the ones who make the paper for the US dollar. We put a $100,000 policy in place because he was losing his life insurance. And that's all he wanted to do. But he had about $1.5 million in his retirement. And I was doing annuities back then, equity index annuities. So I did talk to him about it and encouraged him not to put all of it in there, but take some of it, position it where it's safe, because as you know, the market was doing really great at that time. But he insisted, and it's a crazy thing. It's crazy, but he insisted that mortgage-backed securities, that's what it was invested in, couldn't lose. Absolutely could not lose. So I called him probably 2 or 3 more times to follow up with him. We got the life insurance policy in place. And then obviously everybody knows what happened in 2006, 2007. That said, that's when I jumped into the market. I started buying when the market was going down like crazy, and I got into full-time into currency trading. And with the Fed starting to bail everybody out and print a lot of money, I got into trading the dollar and started doing really well. I stopped doing insurance altogether. In the year that I came to Family First in 2020, I think it was around September, October, I got a final expense lead from Berkshire County. And I thought it was weird because it was a final expense and it was a 46-year-old. I was like, why is a 46-year-old looking for final expense? Like, of all things, right? So I called him up and he just said, yeah, you know what? I actually filled that out because I wanted my parents to get it. I'm like, all right, well, where do your parents live? And let's book the appointment. So we booked the appointment. I went out there and sat with this couple, his parents, and long story short, it ended up being the woman, the wife of that family back in 2005, who was remarried to somebody else. Her husband passed in 2009 and they lost everything And the only thing that kept her afloat was that $100,000 policy that I sold her in 2005. And then in order for her, what's the number one reason women get remarried? Finances. So she got remarried, and that was the reason. So there I was helping the family get a final expense policy. We were able to get them $40,000 each with Mutual of Omaha, and put it into place. And she remembered me.
Wow.
So that's a powerful story. That's something that I would never, ever imagine, and I will never forget.
Absolutely. And that's insane just to know that you were there both times, and it's almost like what brought you there, but it's
completely different house, completely different living conditions. Like the house I went to before was beautiful on, 4 acres. It was a big house. It was nice. You can tell, they had money. This was completely different. This was in the downtown of Dalton, if there is such a thing, and it was a duplex. And they were renting out one side, the left side of it.
Got it. So 2 very different pictures, so to say.
Yeah.
But, like she said, thank God that you were there, because it's like, we know the life insurance is going to play out. Like, we know it's going to end up, paying out when that day does come. And both of those stories, David, are both, they're extremely impactful. And I myself, this whole team knows I use stories a lot in home. And I think that stories really put things into play. And I also think stories help people listen, right? Like, you ever have you have a client, they're listening, but they're not listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
A story is going to kind of engage them, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you tell anybody your story, they're going to listen. Like, I know, like, everybody stop and listen. Like, you could even tell by body language. So it's like, you don't necessarily go in there with the intent of, let me use this story, but it's, hey, this is my personal experience that happened to me, and I saw how it played out. So let me share it with other people so that they understand what it's truly could look like, right? And I think that that's really powerful. Out of an awful thing happening, you're able to relate, and I'm happy that you're able to share that with your clients in home. It's really powerful, David. So thank you for sharing that on this call too. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, I think it's important to connect with your clients, and that's how we connect. It's through storytelling. Everybody can relate to something, a story that you told, and that's the thing. And if you can't think of anything, if you don't have anything, then all you got to do. Again, you guys have a great leader in Paul McLean. I mean, that guy can tell stories like there's no tomorrow. So listen to a few of his stories. On Storm Barissa has a bunch of stories. Use mine if you want to. But storytelling helps you connect and relate to people, and it engages that side of the brain that's actually going to make the decision to buy. As people don't buy on logic, so you have that left and right side of the brain that we talked about, and you want to spend the majority of the time on that emotional side more so than the logic side, because people won't make a decision logically. They'll be moved to make this decision emotionally.
Absolutely, 100%. And when we put it like that, that's just, quite frankly, the psychology behind it, right? And it's a beautiful thing. One other thing I did want to ask you before we close out, because I know we're kind of getting past that 30 minutes, but once you help a family, David, what does your post-close look like? Almost to make sure that, you're ensuring that, you did the best job for that family, but also like no one's going to be going in behind you, so to say.
So that when Marissa calls, they'll say, David was here. No, so basically, I engage them. I tell them after it's all said and done, I ask them to tell me, 3 reasons why they went ahead and protected their family today. I don't even say why they bought. Don't give me 3 reasons why you bought, but give me 3 reasons why you protected your family today. The most important ones. And then I write them down and I give it to them. And I said, if you have any question as to whether or not this is affordable, if you have any question as to whether or not you should do this, I want you to look at these 3 reasons and remind yourself why you did this today. And if you still feel like it's not affordable, then call me back and we'll work something out that's better, that's more in your budget. So if there is somebody going in behind me, it's me to go back in there to, basically make sure that they have something in place, because something is always better than nothing. So that's one thing I do. The other thing I do is I let them know that, you know, especially if it's mortgage protection, you know, they filled out more than one card. So I'll always let them know, you know, you probably filled out more than one. Oh yeah, you know, we filled out 5 of them. Perfect, that's great. That means it was really important to you. But I just want you to know that you may get a phone call. You may get a phone call from somebody that claims to be the manager. I just want you to know that I own my agency. This is my agency. Nobody else will be servicing this policy but me. So if somebody calls you claiming to be a manager or supervisor, just make sure you give me a call and verify. And we'll make sure you have the right coverage in place. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. You know, I let them know like this could happen. And if it does, and you know, we're not letting anybody back in here.
Yeah. And then you're like, no, you're not. And then they're like, you're not. You're like, you better not. And they don't though, right? And
Right.
I love that, you know, write out the 3 reasons why you decided to protect your family. Because it's like, if they go back and look at that, I know that, I mean, I wouldn't be able to call, I'd be, let's not call David. Let's cancel something else. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I love that. And then they're reaching out to you, you're building that relationship. And like you said, you're building it too through your conversation of storytelling and sharing, you know, personal experiences. You know, people take that to heart, they relate. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.